Last lesson, we learned how to avoid making an unsound or ugly stops when reciting the Quran. We also called it al-waqf al-qabih. And today we'll learn how to avoid unsound or ugly beginnings, which is called al-ibtida' al-qabih. And before we get started, we need to define the word beginning here. And with the word beginning, we mean two things. Number one, starting your recitation. Like in prayer, for example, after Surah Al-Fatiha. The second is resuming your recitation after stopping or pausing. So this means you were reciting the Quran and you stopped because you wanted to take a breath or for other reasons and you want to resume your recitation. Let's start with the first one. If you start reciting the Quran. So, where should you start your recitation? Well, you may start your recitation anywhere really, whether that is at the beginning of an ayah or halfway through the ayah. The most important thing is that it is not related in meaning to what came before it. Otherwise, this would be an unsound or an ugly beginning, like in this example. أولئك يرجون رحمة الله. Here, if I started reciting the Quran at the word أولئك, it is not correct because I don't know what the word أولئك is referring to. And if I want to know, I have to read the ayah from the beginning. إن الذين آمنوا والذين هاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله أولئك يرجون رحمة الله. Now the word أولئك is clear because we know who exactly it is referring to. This can also happen when you start at the beginning of the ayah, like in this example. في الدنيا والآخرة. Now, although this is the beginning of an ayah, it is related in its meaning to what comes before it. كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات لعلكم تتفكرون في الدنيا والآخرة. In this way, the meaning is completed because I started from before the beginning of the ayah. But as someone who can't understand Arabic, how can I get this right 100% of the time? Well, there is an easy solution. First, only start at the beginning of an ayah, since starting from the middle requires understanding the context well. So it is possible, but it requires understanding. Second, use an Urdu or Turkish mushaf and use it so that you don't start at an ayah that has the la sign at the end of the previous ayah. So the example that I mentioned looks like this in the Urdu mushaf. So when you see this la sign, it means that you may stop at the end of the ayah normally, since that is the sunnah. However, you may not quit your recitation altogether, and certainly do not initiate your recitation from after that sign. So for example, if you are in prayer, you should not start at this position after Surah Al-Fatiha. So using these two tips, you should be able to avoid any unsound beginning in the Quran, insha'Allah. So this was starting your recitation. What about if you are resuming your recitation? Well, as we said before, this refers to if you have already started reciting, you made a stop or a pause, and you want to continue. And here are the three options that you have if you want to make a good start. If you stopped at the end of an ayah, and then you continue from the beginning of the next ayah, that is of course not a problem. And this works 100% of the time. And if you stopped at a stopping sign, like one of these three, there is of course many more stopping signs in the Quran, especially in the Urdu Mus'haf, but this is just an example. So stopping at any of these signs and then picking it up from afterwards also works 100% of the time. However, if you stopped anywhere other than at the end of an ayah or at a stopping sign, then you should never resume from where you've left off, because this will increase the chance of making an ugly or unsounded beginning substantially. So this should be avoided at all times. Let's look at these examples to see how even making a good stop could still produce an unsounded beginning if not done properly. So this ayah from Surah Al-Fatiha, if you stopped after the word lillah, it is considered as a good stop, since this segment on its own has a complete meaning. But you can pick it up from where you stopped and then say Rabbil Alameen, like that. That will be considered an unsound beginning. Also, if you made an ugly or an unsounded stop, you cannot just start from after that stop, because it can ruin the meaning even more. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحْيِي أَن يَضْرِبَ مَثَلًا مَا. Stopping at the word يَسْتَحْيِي is considered an ugly or an unsound stop, which also means that picking it up from after where you stopped is also not a good idea and should not be done. But then what's the solution if I stopped in the middle of an ayah and not at a stopping sign? Well, as we explained last time, if you don't understand Arabic and you don't know the context of the ayah, it is always safer to repeat 3 or 4 words from before you stopped to make sure that the meaning is complete. Finally, and as I mentioned last time, the best way to know how to make a good stop and a good start is understanding what you're reading, and so learning the Quranic Arabic. And the next best thing is imitating a good qari, because sometimes even following these rules can, in exceptional cases, lead to unwanted results. This example ends with the sign meme, which means that at the end of this sentence you must stop. But let's say you decided to stop here and you read لَقَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ. Here, if you decided to pick it up from Inna Allah until the end of the sentence, you will produce an ugly meaning, which would then be Inna Allah faqirun wa nahnu aghniya. And as you can see, the translation of this meaning is completely different from what the original meaning of the ayah is. So here in this position, if you wanted to stop in the middle of the ayah, then you have to go back to الذين and read الذين قالوا إن الله فقير ونحن أغنياء. And as I have to emphasize every time, as long as you try your hardest and you want to do the best you can, and you still made a mistake, then it is not a problem, insha'Allah, and you should not be worried about it. Most important thing is that you keep learning and keep reciting the word of Allah. Thanks for watching. If you want to start your journey to learn the Tajweed of the Quran, you can click on this link. And if you want to understand the Quran in Arabic, then you should click on that link. And finally, I hope you've learned something new today, and I will see you next time.